Okay. Good morning, class. All right, class rep, if you can hear me, may I know, are you here? Class rep.
Yeah, please. I'm calling the rest to join, sir.
So what's the problem? Um, why? What is causing the delay?
Yes, I say actually, I would say the today's delay is coming from me because I tried reaching you, not knowing that it was a different number that I've written your name on. So that brought about this delay today. But I will do the correction immediately after the lecture. But I'm calling the rest to join, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Mm. Okay. So you are all welcome to strategic sourcing. This is supposed to be week number 5, but unfortunately, um, week 3, I don't know what happened. I joined, I was online with the administrator from ICD for over 1 hour. Nobody showed up. That is 2 weeks ago. Immediately after my first lecture with the level 200, I joined this one, but nobody showed up. And then last week was for self-study. So I don't know the challenge you have as a class. I don't know if you can share those challenges with me. It will help. Or if there's miscommunication somewhere, you can unmute your microphone and share your, thoughts with me.
Sir, please, I wish you can kindly start. And I'm sorry for today's delay. Sorry, sir. Yeah.
No, I'm talking about 2 weeks ago. I was online. I came here. So the ICDE host and then myself were here for over 1 hour. Nobody, no one joined.
Yes, sir. 2 weeks ago, we have a communication from the school due to the flood. We didn't
Hmm.
have a class. And as at last week, as such, we're supposed to study individually.
Hmm.
But even I tried reaching a lot of the lectures to see if they could have come with us, although most lectures were away. So as at last week, the school link was not even active. They even blocked it from the school because they know that there wouldn't be a lecture from the
Yeah,
school. Yes, and
yeah.
that was these are some of the reasons that it happens. But we are. I'm very sorry for this poor organization for today, sir.
All right. So I would advise that you read your slides. Other documents will follow. I think after this meeting, I'll upload the the rest of the materials. And
Okay,
then
sir.
per the calendar, we're supposed to we take our next semester next weekend. I don't know if you are aware. Yeah, so that is I mean what is on the calendar. So before the mid semester, there will be an assignment and that will be posted on the portal for you. So we see if we're going to have the mid semester this weekend or so we are still with Unit 2, supply chain and sourcing decisions. And these are the objectives. We should have done this long time ago. So today we will quickly run through that. So when we talk about supply chain philosophy, generally, sourcing or procurement is just an activity within the wider supply chain. So supply chain is the process that integrates, coordinates, and controls the movement of goods, materials, information from a supplier through to a customer and or the final consumer or user. So it links all activities between suppliers and customers to the consumer in a timely manner. So if you carefully look at the supply chain, activities may include buying or sourcing. That is what we are doing. We have making and manufacturing, moving and distributing, selling and marketing, customer service, everything. So all these are part of the supply chain. So sourcing or procurement is one of the several activities within the supply chain, within the supply chain. And then there's also another concept known as supply chain management. So supply chain is not the same as supply chain management. So we have already defined what a supply chain is. So the management of a supply chain means that when you manage all activities like the information we talked about, the knowledge, the financial resources associated with the flow and transformation of goods and services from the raw material suppliers and other suppliers in such a way that the expectations of the end user will be met or even exceeded. Okay, so once you manage those critical activities, activities that are connected to the flow of goods and services from one point of the chain to the other, then we refer to that as supply chain management. So while defining supply chain, look at it. Um, it is captured here from a supplier through to a customer and or the final consumer or user. So it means that the customer and then the consumer are not the same. I don't know if you get it. So sometimes the goods may go to a consumer. Sometimes it may go through the consumer through the customer. Okay. And sometimes the consumer is the same as the customer. I don't know if you get it. So the question is, when we say a consumer and then a customer, what is the distinction between these two terms? What is the distinction between the terms I've mentioned, a customer and a consumer? You raise your hand. Do you know how to raise your hand on Zoom? Okay, Enoch, go ahead.
Yes, please. So I think with what you just said,
Mhm.
the consumer becomes the final user of the item or the product, somebody who uses the product itself. And then a customer can be somebody who gets hold of it, maybe a retailer will be a customer to a particular organization or a supplier, but may not necessarily be the final user of the product. But somebody
Wonderful.
who gets the product and uses it becomes the consumer of the product. Thank you.
Wonderful. 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 So that was powerful contribution, Enoch. Very powerful. So that is the case. So sometimes goods are not used by the final consumer. They go through the customer. And then the customer in return forward the goods to the final user or consumer. Okay, so the essence is that when you look at your basic economics, they say production has not ended until the product gets to the final consumer. So the essence of supply chain is to ensure that goods move from that point through to the final user or consumer. And it can only be done through proper supply chain network. So if you look at the supply chain, depending on the product, you may have different networks. So this is a typical example of what supply chain looks like. So look at this. We have picture here, farm, and then we have hops or grains through to, the manufacturers, through to, distributors, then to the grocery stores, then before it gets to the final consumer. So this is a typical picture of how a supply chain looks like. So there may be a number of players or agents on the chain with each performing specific activities or mandates. So the players there, as we saw, some are into the manufacturing or the making of the goods and services. Others are into the buying and sourcing of the goods and services. Others are into distribution. So our focus here is on the sourcing of the goods and services. That is buying of the goods and services. So traditional purchasing focuses on the flow of goods and information from the immediate supplier and then the immediate customer. So traditionally, when you talk about purchasing or procurement or sourcing, the focus was on just the immediate buyer and then the immediate supplier. But later on, you saw that it is not right to only focus on just the immediate stakeholders, because supply chain, just as we saw, consists of a number of players. So your immediate supplier will have the capacity, will have everything to provide whatever you need. But because your immediate supplier also has a supplier, then you need to consider, because once your immediate suppliers fail to provide the needed goods and services, they fail to be on you. So you don't have to just consider your immediate supplier. You need to look at the entire chain. You need to look at the entire chain, especially that relating to your, goods and services. So suppliers, we have pre-assembly, manufacturing plant, warehouse, customers, among others. So, sometimes you may have complicated supply chain network depending on the product. Sometimes you may have very simple network depending on the product. Some products have what we call international network because the products are not manufactured in Ghana. They are connected to sometimes even through continents, different continents. So dealing with said supply chain, you need to be very careful about that. But the focus is that there are different players with different mandates. So when you talk about sourcing or procurement, these are the objectives. So there's something we call the 5 rights or 5 R's of procurement or sourcing. These objectives aim at securing goods and services of the right quality at the right time, delivered to the right place in the right quantity at the right price. So you see, your focus here as a procurement person, officer, is to get the right inputs. So that is the operational or basic mandate of procurement or sourcing activity, getting the right inputs. Getting the right inputs. But it doesn't end there. Look, the rest are at the right terms from the right source. Where are we getting the product from? Which source is the product coming from? So there are different sources of, supply. Different sources of supply. So when we talk about sourcing, the process of identifying, selecting, developing suppliers according to license and parenting. So sourcing can be strategic, could be tactical and operational. And in this unit, you will look at all levels of this activity. So strategic aspect of sourcing, you go into that. So once you mention sourcing, you are talking about identifying, selecting, and then development of what supplies. It is not just supplies, because procurement deals with suppliers, and then we have contractors and consultants. So once we talk about sourcing, it is that the identification, selection, and the development of that. But the development part can only be done once the entity is certain that there are benefits that can be, derived from developing a particular supplier. So that is, somehow complicated. So you don't develop every supplier you encounter. You don't develop. You only develop the key suppliers. You only develop the key suppliers. But the focus is that once you identify and select it, the focus is on these basic objectives. Basic objectives. You consider the 5 R's, and then again, the source that we get those items from. So look at this. So sourcing and supply chain. So within supply chain management, there are many different supply chains to manage. Customers worldwide via agents, wholesalers, retailers from the factory in Ghana that gets supplies of, look at this, denim cloth from Italy. And that company uses dye from Germany, cotton from Benin in West Africa, as well as Pakistan. It doesn't end there. Zips from Germany uses wire for the teeth, and then it comes from Japan. Polyester tape from France. Thread from Northern Ireland uses dye from Spain and fiber from Japan. Rivets and buttons from the US uses zinc from Australia and copper from Namibia. Pumice from Turkey. So imagine you are in need of all these. Look at the kind of supply chain you have. You'll be dealing with a very complicated supply chain. But just as we looked at, we need to be careful about where we get the product, because the strategy may not be the same. Because all products do not come from the same source. So we have different sources of supply. Basically, there are three. We have what we call the primary source. We have the secondary source. We have service or the tertiary source. So examples of primary source: farming or fishing, forestry, quarrying, mining, drilling, among others. So here, once you get items directly from Mother Earth, then it means that the source here is the primary source. The source is primary source. So the product in question will be in their raw state. And some of these products may be perishable in nature. So once you are dealing with such products, your approach is not the same as when you are dealing with non-perishable products. So Mother Earth. Then secondly, mailing, smithing, extracting. So here there's some form of value addition, either finished or semi-finished. You add something to it, to the actual products we deliver or we get from Mother Earth. So there's some level of what? Value addition. And then we have the service sector or tertiary source: warehousing, packaging, physical distribution, transport, hotel, catering, market services. These are, so you see, depending on the item or the service, and then where the item or service is being sourced from, that should be able to shape the approach you use in your sourcing or procurement process, because all products are not the same. All products are not the same. So we need to be very careful with how we go about sourcing. So we consider things like strategic sourcing. We need to be very careful. So look at this. If you are into this, look at how complicated the supply chain will be. And for that matter, you need to be strategic with our sourcing decision. So when you talk about strategic sourcing, involves the use of cross-functional team approach. So it is not just you, the procurement members or team. You need to consider other people. So once you consider other people, it distributes the risk. It's not just on procurement. So sourcing is not the sole responsibility of the procurement department, even though procurement champions that process. But once you are looking at strategy, you are looking at getting the best of the procurement arrangement or sourcing arrangement, you need to be embracing. Allow other people, other departments to contribute to the success of the sourcing, because we are looking at getting the right inputs, and other unit or department can equally help. So when you talk about strategic sourcing, it is a systematic process that directs supply managers to plan, select, manage, develop the supplier for long-term business. Long-term business. In other words, it is the application of the current best practices to achieve the full potential of integrating suppliers into long-term business process. So when you get to that point, then you can be thinking of developing suppliers. So once a supplying organization shares aspirations, destiny with you, and through the strategies you are adopting, strategies may include vendor assessment, site visit surveys. Sometimes you read suppliers. There's something you call supplier appraiser. Why are you doing that? You want to know that the suppliers you'll be dealing with are not just in the supplier. They are the best suppliers. So you use all sort of strategies to get the best suppliers, because best suppliers will be able to give you quality supplies, because the focus, like I mentioned, the operational objective of sourcing or procurement is to get the right inputs. Any question, right input. So we use this supplier certification, supplier award programs, vendor rating and qualification, vendor assessment, and all that. So you do the vendor assessment, and then you can categorize suppliers as category A, category B, category C. So a supplier on category D is not on the same level as category A suppliers. Or maybe you are not using A, B categories. You are using, let's say, certification like platinum certification. Or it could be gold certification, silver certification, bronze certification, depending on how you want to. Okay, because you want to get to the best. So there's something we call corporate sourcing, meaning procurement that's moved from just the unit. So sourcing decisions that are high level in terms of the value involved, in terms of the technical aspect of the sourcing. So it may be complicated, complex procurement, or the amount involved. So if you take it upon yourself, just one unit, and you do it, and then it ends in a mess, the consequences will be on just your department or unit. So to avoid that, you allow people to be on board. So once you are looking sourcing from that angle, global sourcing, corporate sourcing, you involve all the other user departments in the organization. So decisions such as whether products and services will be provided using resources within the organization, that is insourcing, whether you'll be going using external sources for that, whether you'll be looking at what you call make or buy decisions among others, would have to be decided here. So it is not just the procurement department, it has to be corporate in nature, because the decision, the outcome will not come to procurement, it will go to the entire organization. It will go to the entire organization. So it has to be pursued from that angle. So once you are considering sourcing from that angle, then there's something we call cross-functional team approach. So more or less a team, not a standing team, but depending on what is at stake, you pick key members from different angles, relevant departments to help. With a sourcing decision. So they come together and the aim is to outline specific objectives for the sourcing activity or decision. So if it's about the acquisition of, if the university wishes to, let's say, construct a new lecture block for ICD, this can't be ICD or the procurement department, it has to be the entire university. So the critical ones, development, project development office or maintenance office, engineering works department, procurement, the legal team will all come together, the finance, and then together we have what we call the cross-functional team. Okay, so maybe a rep from each of these critical departments will be on board. So the finance will be dealing with the financial aspects. The legal team member will be looking at the legal aspect of the acquisition. Procurement will be looking at the procedural issues, among others. Okay, and you are doing all this because you want to get the best of the outcome. Any question? Any question? Okay. So we look at strategic procurement. Strategic procurement. So when we say strategy, what comes to mind? When we say strategy, because we're talking about strategic, this is strategic sourcing, strategic this, strategic that. Come out with your strategies. So a strategy is a general plan or set of plans intended to achieve something, especially over a long period. A long period. Put differently, we can say that it is a general plan to achieve one or more long-term overall goals under conditions of what was certainty. So the focus here is on the long term. On the long term. So issues like deciding procurement or making procurement decision by just looking at prices would not be enough, would not be strategic enough. So you look at the cost of owning the product long term. So in case we use this facility for 10 years, 20 years, how much will it cost us? So what will be the cost implication? So in this case, you look at the price. It will not only end there. You look at the acquisition cost, then you look at the cost of ownership for that period. And then you can say that we are going with product A, product B. It's not because the price is this. So sometimes two products, one is cheaper than the other, but we are still buying the expensive one. The reason is not based on price, it is based on other things. So we consider the total cost of ownership. So planning the organization's path in general rather than specific terms. So how do we strategize such that what we do as procurement officers will always be the best for the organization? So we need to understand that strategies exploit opportunities and strengths when you sit down and you strategize. And then it neutralizes threats and avoid weakness. So you take into account long-term issues. So you plan your procurement. You try as much as possible to avoid what we call speculative buying or emergency buying. For some organizations, all their procurement has been an emergency procurement, which shouldn't be the case. We understand that sometimes there will be emergency, something that is beyond us. Like it happened about a month ago, flood all over the capital city. That is an emergency. So in that case, institutions like NADMO could undertake emergency procurement to help those in need. That is acceptable. But what about almost everything? When there's nothing, urgent or critical about, we need to plan a procurement. It is one of those strategic decisions. We plan. If you do your work well, you know that as a department, these are my procurement needs for the entire year. Okay, you can actually come out with those analysis or figures. You can do that. And then you work at raising funds and how to get the best sources of supply. And then you focus on the quality aspect. Okay, so we need to go beyond what we've been doing. So there are three levels of what we term as strategy. We have what we call corporate level strategy. We have business level and then functional level. So at the base, at the foundation, we can have strategies there because the department or the unit or the function, they have been given some targets or goals. So to be able to realize those goals, we need to work, consciously make effort to achieve those goals. And then we escalate it to the business level, then to the corporate level. So this is what I mean. So there are certain things that we do, and then it will determine the level of strategy we are talking about, whether it is operational or functional level, or it is business or middle level issues. And then we have, the entire organization, business, corporate strategy. Now, developing a strategy, how do we go about it? You need to ask certain questions. What are the targets? What exactly do you want to achieve? What are the target objectives? What are the objectives? What exactly do you want to achieve? Maybe to reduce procurement costs by 10%. Okay, so that is the target. It may not be just one. You may have another target. Assuming this is the target you have. Then you ask, how do we go about the achievement of that target? Probably avoiding speculative buying. You know, speculative buying is expensive, or emergency buying is expensive. So to be able to do that, let us plan. So maybe at the last quarter of the year, all user departments are informed to submit their procurement needs for the ensuing year so that the necessary arrangements be made for them. What is speculative buying? Do you understand speculative buying? When you say speculative buying, what comes to mind? Or emergency buying? Have you heard of emergency buying before? And then we have what we call speculative buying. What is speculative buying?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Mr. Osemen.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. Speculative buying is where purchases are made more than the company needs. So they buy in excess, but they don't even know what the quantity they actually need at the moment. So they're just going to buy maybe a large quantity than the organization needs.
So you think it's a strategic decision or just an ad hoc decision?
Come again, say.
Is speculative buying a strategic decision or just or operational, organizational, just an ad hoc decision?
Yeah, sometimes it's a strategic decision, but it
No, not
also
sometimes.
has it comes with a
No, it has,
okay. So
it,
it's a strategic decision, but it has risk to attached.
yeah. So it has to be a strategic decision. Speculative buying has to be strategic in nature. Why are you speculating? You are speculating because after assessing the market, you've realized that the possibility of prices increasing by this percentage is very high from historical data. So you have worked, you have analyzed the situation for a very long time, and then you are arriving at a particular situation. So you are not just speculating, you have assessed it, and you are looking at the interest of the organization in the long run. So even though you may not need these items now, but you are just looking into the future. It is strategic. It is strategic. And then we have what we call emergency procurement. What is emergency procurement? I want you to explain that and then differentiate emergency procurement from speculative procurement or buying.
Hello, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
Isaac, go ahead.
The emergency come as a result of the urgent need of the items, especially at the health sector. For medicines.
Okay. Okay. Any other? Any other?
You don't have to wait. There are certain events which have no options than to raise requests for emergency purchase.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Usu.
Yes, I think the emergency procurement comes in where there is a situation that is very, very urgent, an unexpected situation occurs, and then if the organization wants to go through the normal procurement process, it might take too long, or it might end up worsening things. So emergency comes in where the situation is very, very urgent, and then there's a need for that particular thing, and then the company takes it up. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So carefully, if you understand what an emergency procurement is. Do you think that the cost of procurement of emergency item, do you think it is cheaper or expensive?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah. In that terms, you don't consider the price, but you consider the issue involved
Okay.
of solving the problem first, or you think of the price, because
Okay.
it's an emergency. For
Yeah.
instance, again, in emergency or if there is a dispute between two countries right now, and we have no equipment or equipment to curb those dispute. Military has to come in, and we have to acquire what emergency military helicopter to solve that problem. So in that terms, you don't have to consider the price, but consider solving the problem first.
Okay. So, but the question I asked, do you think emergency procurement is cheaper to deal with or is expensive?
Yeah,
Because
it's expensive.
whether very, very expensive, very,
Yeah,
very,
expensive.
very expensive,
Yeah.
very, very, very expensive. So the reason why now we are looking at this cost, strategic sourcing, is very simple. We want to be strategic in all aspects of the procurement decision. So you see, for some emergencies, they are just beyond our control. There's nothing we can do. An act of God, for instance, like it happened in Accra, flood. It is something we cannot do. There's nothing we can do about it. If it is raining, can we stop the rain? No. But we can do few things. Maybe by making sure that the drainage system is intact. That is fine. But the rain itself, there's nothing we can do. But the problem is not the actual situations of act of God. Due to negligence, people will create those emergency situations, which shouldn't have been the case. So instead of planning a procurement, we will wait, and then every request becomes an emergency. That is what I'm talking about, not the natural emergency. Because for those ones, it is just outside our control. So now, if you perform your role as a procurement person, you don't have to be just an armchair procurement officer. You need to be proactive. You need to plan ahead. You need to be strategic in terms of the procurement processes. So you don't wait. In that case, because now you know that emergency procurement are expensive, you don't wait to create that situation, because one of the reasons why you are there is to bring down procurement costs. And if all procurement activities are or become emergency, then you will not be able to achieve that objective. That is what I'm trying to say. You will not be able to achieve. How often do we experience flood in Ghana? How often? For 365 days in a year. How many times in a year, or maybe a city or a village or a town experience that? Very small. It doesn't really happen. Okay. But people will wait. In terms of normal, they will just wait. People are not doing their job well, they will wait. And then it becomes a problem. So instead of placing the order maybe 2-3 months ahead, they will sit down, and then when the needs become critical, that is when they will act. But before that, they knew that definitely this user will need items, the following items for their operations. Because without those items, they will not be able to continue or carry out their mandate. So you don't have to wait. So if you need item from the primary source, you need to know, identify the sources ahead. So the first thing I've been telling students is that once you find yourself in any organization, you need to be asking questions. Who are my stakeholders, major stakeholders? What are the core procurement needs of this organization? How do I influence that so that the organization does not make unnecessary procurement, so that the costs will be minimized? Example, if you find yourself, let's say, as the procurement manager for Guinness Ghana, can you tell me some of the things, some of the procurement needs you'll be looking at? Even before orders are sent to you or requests are sent to you, in your mind, you should know that A or B will be on the list almost every day. Can you tell me some of the things you are likely to procure or some of your business needs if you find yourself as a procurement officer for Guinness Ghana? Just, even though you don't work for Guinness Ghana, but I want you to just think around it. All right. Anas. Yeah. Class rep, go ahead. Okay. Ezekiel. Yes.
Water,
Yeah.
barley,
Yeah.
and bottles.
Yeah. So you see, even before the request come, you should know that these are the things you'll be procuring almost all the time because that is what you are into. So why do you have to wait till requests are made before you know where to get these items? You don't have to do that because once you do that, you'll be creating unnecessary emergency procurement, which shouldn't have been the case. I don't know if you are getting it. Which shouldn't have been the case. Because you know that if the business is in operation, definitely we need A, B, and C. Because these are, and yes, you didn't do business needs. So yeah. So you need to know your business needs, your procurement needs. And that will shape how you go about it. So obviously, once you assess your procurement needs, you know that, oh, majority of our needs are coming from the primary source. And most of them are perishable in nature. So how do we go about it in order to minimize losses? Because we can't procure in, bulk quantities because such product cannot, we don't have the storage capacity. So what do we do? What should be the arrangement? Obviously, maybe you don't work with Guinness. You work as procurement or supply chain person for Melcom Ghana. So in this case, can you tell us some of your procurement, what will be your procurement needs? A procurement officer for Guinness Ghana Limited, Melcom Ghana. Can you identify some of your procurement needs? Even before the
So,
request come to your desk, Philip.
Thermal rolls.
Come again?
Thermal rolls for the receipt.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Okay. But consider the key ones. The key ones. Procurement officer for. So, what will you be procuring almost every day for the company? Procurement officer for Melcom Ghana. I just want you to understand something. So that's why I'm doing this exercise. Melcom Ghana, you are the procurement officer there. You have not received any requests. But in your mind, can you identify some of the items or some of the procurement needs for this organization? Yes. No, I want everybody. The ladies are not talking. I want to hear their voices. Listen now. Vivian, Sarafina. Yes, I want to hear your voices. Okay, sorry,
Yes,
Fina, what?
sir. Yes, sir. Their packaging materials and also the things they sell, like the things they display on their shelves.
Yes, so those are the key things. The item when you enter Melcom now, the things there you are not going there to as a tourist. The things there, they belong to what? Okay, so how will you describe Melcom? Are they into primary sector, secondary sector, or the service sector? We just looked at the various sectors. So which sector will you place Melcom Ghana? Enoch.
Tertiary.
Wonderful. So over there, they are into retail services. So the items there, all the items there, that is what you'll be looking at. That will be your focus. Even when the request has not been sent, you know that you'll be dealing with such items. And it's a huge company, and they will have this massive supply chain network. So you need to be looking at that. Where do we get those products? Probably they have, a major distributor you're working with. So you need to be in constant touch with that distributor. But you don't wait for the stores in Takrady to report that we don't have this item, the stores in Kumasi to report that we don't have this item. And then it becomes almost all the time it is admitted. Yeah, that is not a good sign of what? Effective procurement management. No. So we need to be strategic. We need to be strategic. So procurement as a strategic concept. Procurement and sourcing must be linked to the financial planning and the economic value added construction of the business. So even though procurement is not bringing cash, but once we execute it well, by ensuring that we do the right thing, we only focus on the real needs. Not all needs are actually needed. And because we are planning, we try to bring down the cost of procurement. We try to bring down the cost of procurement. So if you are only increasing cost of procurement, then anybody at all can perform that role. If you are only increasing the cost, then anybody at all can do that. So you look at things that will help you get the best out of the procurement decision, just because you want to contribute to the overall performance of the organization. So once procurement cost is being minimized and other departments that are into the maximization of revenue also work seriously at that, the company will be in a very good situation. So sometimes maybe you push from the adoption of e-business or maybe concept like e-procurement, because maybe there are a lot of lapses with the traditional procurement among others. So you want to look at those things. You are not just, once requests are sent, you are not just answering requests, you are interrogating requests. So don't see it as just an administrative or clerical role. No. So once you receive the request, you work on it. Every request, you work on it. No. Interrogate. Interrogate. The reason for the interrogation is that you want to ensure that only real needs are procured, because the resources are scarce. The organization may have multiple of course obligations or responsibilities to deal with, and the organization can't be spending everything on acquisition. So you only procure the rights or the real needs. So that is why you need to have that strategy. So you come out with those objectives. And then we are saying that the objectives must be smart enough. What exactly do you want to achieve? So it has to be specific. State it clearly. Maybe do this A, the focus now is to reduce procurement cost by this percentage. You can't say to reduce procurement cost. It's too vague. It's general. So we need to indicate in specific terms. It has to be measurable. Okay, so 10%. At the end of the day, you couldn't. Maybe you were able to reduce the procurement cost by, let's say, 8%. At least you have done something. And it should be achievable. You don't set objectives that are just beyond imagination. People are just talking about it. I want to do this. Meanwhile, you know that no matter what happens, you can't be there. And it should be relevant to what you do. And then time bound. So it is not in perpetuity. So we need to know that, or maybe in the next 1 year, this is what we want to do. In the next 2 years, in the next 6 months, the next 3 months, this is what we want to do. So we need to come out with smart objectives. So there are a number of best procurement strategies we employ in order to get the best of procurement decisions. We don't just make them, they are strategies. So concepts like, or strategy like make or buy. Do we use internal resources to procure? Do we use external resources to procure? Do we make it ourselves? So before you arrive at a decision, let's say you go with buying. What options did you consider? What benefits is the organization getting from buying rather than making it? What are the benefits of making it rather than buying it? So you compare and contrast the options, and then you stick to one. So whatever option you are sticking to under the circumstance should be better than other available option. So sometimes you focus on single source and sole source, where you depend on the particular sources of supply. Sometimes, for some reasons, you want to use dual sources. You are buying from 2 different suppliers. It is for a reason. Sometimes you are looking at multiple sources, and then sometimes you go global, and then partnership sources. These are all strategic decisions. We don't just make them. So one of the more complex and important business decision facing firms today is whether to produce an item or provide a service internally, or that is insourcing, or to purchase it from outside. We've been doing that a lot. And I'm saying that you don't just make a choice. The choice should be backed by something, some thorough assessment. Are you with me? So we need to make that informed decision. You are not just picking. This is not raffle. We are doing this is because after looking at the various options, this came on top. We assessed all these options. So you know what you are talking about. All right. So that is that. So sometimes you focus on outsourcing. You don't want to do it from in-house. You want to use a third party, an external party. So initially, it was between your company and then the supplying organization. Now, you realize that doing that will not be in the best interest of the organization. So after evaluating all those options, you decided to have a third party to perform that role on your behalf. So now, the third party is more or less the intermediary between you and the supplying organization or contracting organization or the consulting organization. There's a reason. And all these must be considered. So why are organizations looking at this? Some of the reasons may be to concentrate on its core competencies. And then again, maybe when you realize that doing it by themselves is costing them a lot, probably they did not have that capacity in-house. So they are using external resources, and that would be a much better option. They'll be able to save the company some cities than doing it themselves. And sometimes organizations are looking at options like outsourcing because they want to gain competitive advantage over competitors. At least keep pace with competitors who are also outsourcing. So you are outsourcing because you think that the external party or the third party is able and better place to perform that role than when you do it in-house. So that's why you want to do that. So to be able to compete with your competitors, you also want to move on the same direction and then benefit from economies of scale by small manufacturers outsourcing aspect of their work to larger manufacturers. So levels of make or buy, it could be strategic, it could be tactical, it could be component make or buy. So sometimes we say that buy to decrease risk. What are the risks we are talking about? If you decide to make it, it comes with some risk. So the risk, if you think you cannot deal with the risk, then you may decide to buy. Typical example, if you want, let's say this afternoon you are craving for fufu and rice soup with chicken. There are options whether you make the fufu yourself or whether you buy the fufu from a restaurant or choba somewhere. And I'm saying that you don't just decide, you evaluate the options carefully. So if I decide to make the fufu at home, what are the options? First, I know I'll select my own ingredient. I know what I'm using for the food. Maybe I'll move straight to the market, buy my stuff, and then I prepare my fufu. I know the ingredient I'm using and all that. I have time. Maybe today I don't have to do or meet in this group of students. So maybe I have time. I have this, I have that. So let me do it. So you are making it because you have idle plans or workforce or time. You want to remain in control. People will say that maybe you don't eat from outside. That is their perception. That is what, they see things or they do things. They don't buy food from outside. Or maybe because of health or other personal reasons, they don't take certain things. So once they make it, they have control over those things. But if they are buying it, they can't control it. People can even tell you that we are not adding this, but in natural sense, they have already added that. So for some reasons, people will say, I am doing it myself. And then when you look at all the time, the money and other things, it will be too tedious for me. I can't make the fufu, pound it, do this, that. Let me go to the restaurant and buy it. So you buy to decrease risk, such as cost, time, performance, scope. Maybe you are not even a good cook. So when you do it at home, even though you may have control, but it will not be able to come out nice. So you do all that. And then may also involve buy or lease decision. So we need to consider all those options. So we say that borrow before you buy before you build. Buy before you build. So you need to consider the options on that level. Don't just make an option, a decision. The decision once made means that it has been properly assessed, properly evaluated, properly analyzed, and that the outcome will be very great organization. So example, look, and because it is strategic, you need to be careful with this. It is not just any procurement, it is strategic. Now, assume you can lease an item you need for a project for 900 cedis a day. Okay, assuming your company needs an item. The lease cost is 900 cedis a day. So there's another option to buy. So this is what we call lease or buy. To purchase the item, the cost is 15,000. It doesn't end there. There's also an operational cost of 300 cedis a day. So if you have this situation at hand, what will be the decision? I want you to analyze this and tell me, as a procurement officer, you have this decision. what should be the decision? And why do you think that decision will be in the best interest of the organization? I want you to look at this carefully and tell me. I'm waiting for all of you. Abdul Rashid. Hey, are you new? Abdul. Abdul Rashid, are you new? Because this is the first time of seeing your name here. Class, are you with me? There's a question on the screen. I want you to look at it and then come out with your observations.
Please, we are here. We are calculating.
Oh, you are okay. Okay, so you calculate and tell me. So if indeed you are doing a calculation, do it and tell me. Which of these two options should be the best? The option of leasing the item, the cost is 900 cedis a day. And then there's option of purchasing the item. The cost is 15,000 plus operational cost of 300 cedis a day. Which should be the option? Yeah. Okay, Philip.
Yes, sir. So looking at the leasing the item for the project a day and
Mhm.
then buying the cost, we have to first look at the number of days that would need to amount to the same cost of buying it. And when I did the calculation, it was 25 days.
Okay.
So if you are going to lease the item for less than 25 days, then it is good to lease it. But if it is going to be more than 25 days, then you have to buy the item.
Philip, I think you are super, super. That was 100% point. This is super. All right. I don't know. Did you all get what Philip said? So that is how we need to. So we need to ask certain questions. So situations like this, you don't just get up and say, we are leasing, we are buying. The question is, for how long? How long do we need to use them? I mean, the equipment. How long? So first of all, determine the duration. How long? Then you use the duration to make your analysis. So that's why I said that it's not the normal procurement. This is strategic procurement. So we'll be making a lot of calculations. We are analyzing situations, and it is exactly the case. So who doesn't understand this? I think there's a, yeah. Okay, so SNM is in full support. So that was 100%. Hey, Philip, I think we've not met, but I like you already. Who doesn't understand what we've done so far? If you don't understand, please show by heart. Let's know. So I think this question is in your slide, right? So we did this. Yes. So this is the decision. So if it's going to be more than 25 days, then you make a decision on that. If it is less than this, then you make a decision. So now it means that we don't just make procurement decision. It should be assessed, it should be analyzed. So as a procurement person, once you are making a recommendation, it's not because you want to get 10%. That is dangerous. If you do that, you go straight to someone. You are making recommendation because you are a professional. And as a professional, you make an informed decision. So if you understood the first one, I want you to look at this. Do this, do the eye, just the eye, and let's see. Do the eye and tell me the answer. I'm giving you 2 minutes. Do the eye, the BI. Class rep, are you okay with what we are doing? Abdul Rashid, I have been calling your name. I want to hear from you. Is this your first time here? Abdul Rashid. Okay, so I think we need to remove him.
Sir,
Okay.
hello.
Is it your
Good
first?
morning.
Is it your first time
No,
here?
this is not my first time.
Oh, really?
Just experiencing that. Yeah, my network reception here is quite poor.
Oh, I see. Okay. All right. So, what did you get for the BI to all of you? Let me see. Vivian, Vivian, Vivian. Let me see. Okay, Vivian is fine. Um, okay, hold on, Philip. Let's hear from other students. Okay. Eileen Bafo Pa is still absent. Okay. Okay. All right, Ezekiel.
Okay. So it will take 30 days for the leasing price to equal the purchase price. So if you are using it for 35 days, it would make sense to purchase the product than to lease it.
Okay. Any other answer? Do you have a different answer or so for 35 days, how much would the lease cost be? And then how much would the purchase cost be? So once you compare the lease to purchase, then you think that it is more economically rational to maybe lease or to purchase. So what can you tell me the figures you got? Okay. Can you tell me the figures? Go ahead. Ezekiel, you want to?
Leasing for 35 days is 19,250.
Okay.
But buying will be 12,000 plus, sorry, 150 times 35, which will be 17,250.
Mm-hmm.
So buying it is cheaper than leasing it for the 35 days.
Wonderful. 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 So that is that. That is that. So now you don't just make a decision. It's based on something. It is based on something. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Major Lamptey, are you with us? Are you okay? Are you following Major Lamptey?
Not really, sir. If
And very quiet. So, and you are very quiet. Okay. Mr. Isaac, are you with us?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Vivian, are you with us?
yes, please.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, I'm sure Sarah, I saw Sarah, so Sarah is also good. Sarafina, are you with us?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Wonderful. No, I didn't say you are here, but did you
Yeah,
get?
yeah, yes, please, I did. I did.
All right, all right. Okay, that's fine. So now if you want to do the calculation, I think Isaac, first of all, you need to establish the lease function. The lease is 550D. Okay, that is the lease function. The purchase function is 12,000 plus 150D. Now we know D to be 35. So where you see D, insert 35. So insert 35 into the lease function. So it becomes 550 times 35. Then you write the answer there. So that is the lease cost. Then you come and do the same thing for the purchase cost. Purchase cost is 12,000 plus the operational cost, which is 150 cedis a day. And then a day here is 35. So 150 times 35 plus the 12,000 give you the total purchase cost. Then you compare the two figures, purchase and lease, which one is more, we are looking at ways of minimizing costs. So it is the same product, the same thing we are buying, but in terms of cost, which one is cheaper? And then we select that one and say that it is better for that product because all things being equal, the only variable there is the cost. Is the cost. So all these decisions must be looked at before coming to a conclusion. So sometimes we use partnership sourcing. Partnership sourcing. And partnership sourcing can only be done when you have been in contact with a particular supplier for a very long time, meaning you have, um, developed in terms of relationship. In terms of relationship. So different organizations, but now you are perceiving things as, partners. And you are doing that in order to bring down the cost. So this is where the development of suppliers will come in. So companies that are working closely with you, that are giving you best supplies, over time, you become partners, and then you can even source together. So whilst you are developing specifications, your suppliers are there. They will help you that, okay, we are going to buy the things from this can maybe from China or from the US or from here. So this is how we go about it. So you don't just get this arrangement on the go. You need to develop on it. So if you are developing a supplier because you want to establish some kind of partnership in terms of your sourcing decisions, then you should have that justification. And then at the same time, sometimes we are even tempted to go global. There's something called global sourcing. Items may be available on the domestic market, but we still want to go to the international market. So Global sourcing is the practice of sourcing from the global market for goods and services across geopolitical boundaries. Why? Because after looking at what we have on the domestic or local market, you think that doing business on the global market will, save the company some cities. So that is why. So you are not just going because all other companies are going. You are going because it is the best decision. It's going to give, the benefit of it outweighs that of doing business with the local, market. So you look at the advantages and disadvantages among others. And then we have what we call, sometimes we structure our procurement. You call it procurement structure. These are all strategic. So sometimes you want to centralize all your procurement activities. Okay, centralize. Sometimes you want to decentralize. So you are not just doing it because other institutions are doing it. You are doing it because that is the right decision. For public sector, you may not have that opportunity to do it because the law is very strict on that. But in private procurement, other corporate organization, private organization, you have the option of, let's say, centralizing your procurement or decentralizing your procurement. And you need to weigh the pros and cons of each structure. So when you talk about centralized procurement, it places purchasing units in both a central and tactical position. So centralization in procurement attempt to acquire the economies of scale. So there may be several reasons, but the key one is the economies of scale. So once you are able to centralize, it means there will be aggregation of what requirements. So you buy in bulk and you're able to bring the cost down through, better negotiation. You can say that, oh, we are buying in bulk. Why don't you reduce or give us a discount? So you do that to be able to bring the average cost down. Okay, so once you see any organization that is taking or making all their procurement decisions from a central point or location, it means that they are using what we call centralized procurement structure. And sometimes organization may have branches or may even have just one organization, but may empower the department by way of giving budgetary allocation. So once that department or unit identifies any procurement need, they use their budgetary allocation. It could be in the form of impress or any other thing. Okay, so once you see that, then the structure they are using is decentralized. And there may be reasons why entities may use that structure. So the prominent among those reasons is driven by units independent needs and focuses on a unit level rather than corporate level. So once you need something, you don't route it through anybody. You just go straight onto the market and get your needs. So some organizations may adopt that, and there may be reasons why they are doing that. Okay, there may be reasons why they are doing that. So if you want to do something like that, you don't just say that, oh, you need to analyze, observe the various, forms, and then say that we are going with this structure or that structure. And then we have already spoken about outsourcing, and then why some organizations may even decide to outsource. We have drivers for outsourcing. So the main driver of outsourcing is the need for focused competitiveness. That is, outsource where others can do it better. Okay, so maybe you are giving a part or a function to a third party to perform on your behalf. It could be an entire procurement activity. It could be just one aspect of the activities within the procurement function. Okay, so I sought to focus on core business. I sought to reduce costs. All right, and then you don't outsource your core activities. It is only non-core activities. So reasons for outsourcing. Why outsource? Maybe external supplier has better capability than you, among others. And then we have importance for outsourcing decision. You need to define your activity well, roles and responsibilities must be clear to all parties involved, and then you need to have a very good relationship with the one providing the outsourcing service. And then high quality in terms of the selection, you need to focus on selecting a very quality provider. And we know the benefit of selecting a good provider or vendor. and the effective contract management and monitoring. And then we have some negative aspects of outsourcing, conflict of interest. Sometimes people will be pushing that we outsource. Why? Because maybe those working in that department don't really like them. So we want that function to be given to a third party so that they are even um, uh, dismissed from the organization. Or maybe you establish the company to perform that on behalf of, the company just to make them. So conflict of interest can happen. So these are some of the dangers. And then loss of control, especially if those activities are in the hands of a very strict provider. You don't have any access to those activities again. And then when you mistakenly outsource core activities, it means that the company is in the hands of that third party. So that's why you need to be very careful with outsourcing. You don't just outsource, so you need to take your time. So you only outsource the non-core activities. And then even though outsourcing comes with some positive stuff, sometimes it may fail. And the reasons why outsourcing may fail include the following. When there's no safeguarding of quality staff in terms of even the selection of the provider, not ensuring satisfactory provision for supplier selection and maintenance of quality standards, and then lack of communication among others. So this is the end of what I wanted to handle for today. And the rest, I would advise that you go through the notes and then, you ask the necessary questions when you get this time. If there are a few questions, our time is up. If there are a few questions, you can ask. And when I started, I said that per the calendar, next week, we need to have the next semester. I don't know how the form it will take. I don't know the form it will take, but I'm going to give you assignments. I'm going to give you assignments that will come your way before the meeting next weekend. Is that okay? Is Marker here? Marker is absent. Okay, so if there are no questions, I'm done. See you next weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
All right.
Thank